EOS is something that's been around a while now. How long, Adrian?
Oh, around 2011, 2012 in the States, really. But yeah, not so much in this country, just taking a while.
Yeah. So it's been quite popular amongst our clients. I did a poll in the WhatsApp group recently, and there's a number of clients that have read book and not quite got started with implementing it yet, or you've tried implemented it and maybe not implemented it fully. So I hope this today will be useful for sort of giving you a bit of inspiration, a bit of practical nous in terms of how you can use EOS in your business. Some of you will never have heard of it. That's absolutely fine because Adrian is going to give an overall tour of the EOS system today. But he'll do much better introduction than me. That effectively it is a system for helping you to organize your business better. MAP have been using this ourselves now for a number of years. So we follow the EOS model. And as I say, a number of agencies do as well. And a few years ago, we did actually run an EOS event ourselves, MAP, and we struggled to find a UK implementer at the time and somebody who could help our clients actually adopt this model. So we were really fortunate when we found Adrian because not only is he a UK implementer, but he's also a former agency owner and an agency that was very well known, went through a difficult period, came out of it, and Adrian puts a lot of that success down to EOS and able to exit that as well. So it's a very relevant topic today. So hopefully you're all awake and alert and ready to make the most out of this. And also, final thing just to say is that we also did a podcast with Adrian recently. So that'll be a really good follow up for you to listen to Adrian talk about his story in more detail. Today is more of a deep dive into EOS, and the podcast is more about going into his story and how it helped him and his business. So you'll find that on the Matt Broom podcast. Super. Okay, Adrian, I'm going to switch off my video in a sec. If you just want to share your screen, I'll give you the nod that everything's working, and then I'll clear off. Yeah, all good. Over
There
to
we
you.
go. All good. Thank you very much, guys. Well, good morning. Monday morning here, so hopefully this is all going to be relevant for you guys anyway. I'm going to do sort of a tour of sort of a backstory to myself and to EOS, and also going through the model, so what the model is. So let me share with you. I'm going to cover three things. One, about us. So that is about the guy that created the model, Gino Whitman, and about the company, just very high level. About myself, diving into the model. You may have seen it. There's sort of six key components. I'll talk about that soon. And then follow up with the process, what we typically go through. So about us. Well, where did EOS come from? As I said earlier, it sort of came about really by this guy, Gino Whitman, around 2010. He used to work in these, well, he got into his family business to help them, struggling business over in the States, this is. And he started to find and discover tools and techniques that he could use in a business and just start to piece them all together. Being fair, there was nothing revolutionary. You know, if you look at traction and EOS, there's nothing which jumps out like, oh my God, that is, I've never heard of this. It's not about that. It's more about the process which he created and created the EOS system, which worked to great effect, built the company from a failing company, really, and sold it. He then went on to sort of help other companies. He wrote the traction book, which is well over 1 million copies. I think it's 2 million in total of all of the books. There's about 9 books in the library which have been written. And you know, from a track record, we've got about 163, and that obviously changes. 63,000 full day sessions are held by implementers like us. Many more are using it. You know, we've got 257,000 companies that are using the tools that's listed on the EOS system. And we've got at the moment 751 people like me globally, mainly America. We've got around 20 in the UK now. So it's really scaled in the last sort of 2 years. We are called implementers to help them to implement the system into an organization. So what can EOS do for your business? Well, it's three things that we really talk about. It's the vision. It's getting everyone in your organization 100% on the same page with where you're going and how you plan to get there. So important that we get that right within the organization. Next up is traction, installing focus, discipline, and accountability throughout the company so that everyone executes on that vision every day. And then finally, it's healthy. It's helping you and your leaders become much more cohesive, functional, healthy, creating a leadership team. Because in most organizations, they're not. And what's so important is that we create a healthy environment for the leadership team. Because if we get that, the rest of the team follow. They all follow the leaders. So my backstory, if you like, is that, yeah, in 1999, I established Blue Leaf. You may have heard of it, a design agency in Cheshire. We won a lot of awards over the time. This is from 99. We grew it, won the awards, got quite a lot of fame, especially as we developed into being an e-commerce agency. We managed to pick up some great accounts. Laura Ashley, Red Bull were some of the key ones. And, you know, on the outside of it, we projected this really nice image, and that's what we should be doing, you know, holding events and getting a lot of fame for what we were doing. But on the inside, not everything was a bed of roses, so to speak. You know, occasionally things would sort of go wrong. It sort of culminated, I guess, in 2013, where my mum passed away at the start of the year. I went through a messy divorce, which was problematic for most, and then was told I was insolvent, both personally and professionally. But somebody gave me the book Traction. Read it. I didn't have much else to do, and I implemented it purely within the business, which helped us to scale, grow the business back out from sort of an insolvency to a point where we sold for a healthy sum in 2019 by using the system. So I then stayed with the company for a short while and then reconnected with Traction and just became an implementer because I am so passionate about helping leadership teams. I just love helping them to do what they're doing. So that's the backstory, if you like. The model, which I'll now run through, starts really with your business in the middle of it. So, you know, as we're talking about this, just think about your business in the center. We've got to work on the vision, make sure that we're getting that all aligned. And I'm going to go a high level first. I'll come back into each stage afterwards. We're going to work on the people. We've got some tools which we can use to help you to run the business better regarding the people. We've got to think about data within your organization, making sure we're getting the right data. We should be creating a culture of issues and how we can solve them. So we've got some tools which we can use to solve issues. I'll talk about that in a short while. Process is one of those things which many talk about. We don't always get it there, but again, we can help you. And then finally, traction. You know, helping you to get more traction in the organization is absolutely key. As they say, vision without traction is hallucination. So we've got to make sure the vision is right and then get massive traction throughout. We sort of look at your business, you know, if we ask some questions on you, you know, where are you at on a scale between 0 and 100 in each of these key components? We tend to find that most are probably 20, 30, 40 maybe. But what we're aiming to do is get you to 100% strong in each one of these key components. Because if we can do that, that's when the juice really comes within an organization. It's almost like the ball is rolling much easier if we're really up there. The goal, realistically, we get you to 80% strong. That's when you've got EOS really embedded in your organization. So the target audience that we work with really are privately held entrepreneurial companies with between 10 and 250. Now, I've run this with teams less than that. I've got a team that I help personally, which has got 2 people in it. I run it with myself with just 1 person. And I also know that it's worked with organizations way over 250. But if we look at the sweet spot, it's between 10 and 250. It's owners of leadership and leadership teams that are open-minded, respectful, appreciative, growth-oriented. That's what we're looking for. Normally hitting the ceiling, just cannot break through. That's when something like this is really, really relevant for them. So the frustrations we normally find are people, often the key issue, lack of control of the business, profit, wanting more, hitting that ceiling, as I mentioned earlier, sales and marketing, doing things, but just not being able to do the right things, getting the right results. Basically trying lots of things to get to the next level and just struggling. That's when something like this is really, really powerful. So if I come back onto the model, let me go a bit deeper on it for you. The first key component is vision. So what we're looking for is answers to 8 key questions. Now, you'll remember I said earlier on that it's not really about rocket science here or golden bullets, but what we do need to clarify is what are the core values in your business? Most businesses have them in some fashion. We've got to make sure we're very, very clear what these are, because you'll see later on, we're going to use these throughout all aspects of your business. So we clarify that first. We then need to figure out what that core focus is. You know, what is the purpose? What's the cause? What's the passion in the organization? We've got to really drill down into that. And what is the niche? What's the why that you're doing all of this sort of for, you know? Once we've got all those things clear about the purpose, cause, passion, and the niche, we then think about a long range. We sort of say 10-year target, might be 7 years, it might be 15. It depends on your journey, but we've got to create a long range target. It's like the mountain that we're going to climb. Then we can then drill into the marketing, figure out what the target list is, who we should be communicating with. What are our 3 uniques, if we can figure those out? Remember, I talked earlier about this sort of vision, traction, healthy. That's what ours is. You know, in those in isolation, the 3 of them makes us completely unique. And what we also have is a proven process, which is what we need to get for your organization as well. What is the process you go through in working with a client? Let's show it, demonstrate it, and add a guarantee if we can. So that's all the things that we're doing down here in the marketing strategy, helping you to differentiate from anybody else. Once we've got those cracked, we then go on to the 3-year picture. So we bring in more clarity to it, you know, adding a date, some revenue, some profit measurables, and what does it start to look like? If we can picture it, boy, have we got so much more chance of hitting it. So we've got to get it really quite clear what that 3-year picture looks like, because it's not far away. So we've got to get that clear. Now this, as you see, is the vision. It's a 2-page document, a vision traction organizer. This is the first page. What we do is we complete that, and then we move on to the second page, which is all about attraction. It's just about getting you more movement. First up, the 1-year plan. We've done the 3-year, we bring it down to 1 year now, where we can really get quite granular about what we're doing. We've got a date on there, revenue, profit measurables, and again, what's it look like? What are the goals we've got to achieve over the next 12 months? Next up is ROCs. You may or may not have heard of it. ROCs is, if you think of goals, basically what we're creating is a 90-day world for your business. So this is 12 months. This is 90, so a 3-month sort of plan of what the date is, the revenue measurables, and then the ROCs for the quarter. We call it ROCs because it's the biggest things we need to work on in the business to get you towards the 90-day, the 1 year, the 3-year, the 10-year. And then we've got to create a culture of issues, smoking out issues in the business and then solving those issues as we go. So again, I'll talk to you about how we do that a little bit later. But if we can capture those issues and then come together and solve them, we're going to smash through these ROCs and these 1-year plan much easier. So that's the 2-page document that we create. It's not a big business document. And as I say, it's quite simplistic, but if we can get it onto a 2-page document and we can get it so we can share it to all of our team, even to people that we interview, it just makes such a difference when they come in and we say, look, this is where we're going. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. It makes it so much easier to recruit people because you've just got that simplicity about what you're doing. So that's the vision component. We're looking to get you 100% strong if we can. 80% is great, but anywhere right up that scale is really important. The second piece of the pie, people. As I said earlier, 82% of it is people issues that we have. So we've got to make sure we're getting the right people in the organization. The way that we do this through a simple tool called the People Analyzer. If you imagine across here that this is your values, this, interestingly enough, is the EOS values, but we capture those across the top. We have maybe people we're interviewing or people of your team along here. This I'll come back to a bit later on, but what we want to do is start to score how people perform. So if we look at David, for instance, is he humbly confident? Yes, plus. Grow or die? Yes. Help first? Absolutely. So most of the time, David is showing that he is a plus to our values. Shonda, however, is not. Shonda is showing that she is not always humbly confident and not always help first. Do the right thing, not really. But maybe we're not too sure on a grow or die or do what you say. So we're putting in a score just between the three of plus, plus, minus, or minus. And then Kurt, pretty good, a good range there and some plus minus throughout the way. Now, this is what we would do with each of your team. We would do it when we're recruiting people as well, because what we want to do is make sure that all of our team are above the bar. So these could be in any order, but we may say that we might have 2, 3 pluses maybe and 2 plus minus, but we will not accept anything below that bar because we do not want people that do not meet our values. This is what we use to manage our team and to manage new recruits. The next thing is about right seats. So it's really, really important that we don't just do an org chart. We've got to create an accountability chart in a business. So if we think about it in its simplest form, any business will have some sort of marketing and some sort of sales going on. You've got some operations and you've got some finance. You've got to have that in some way to run a business. Now, normally we'll have some sort of integrator. It might be a managing director, a COO, or something like that. Somebody who just is like the glue and just manage what's going on in the organization. And then on some organizations, we find a visionary. Now, this is often the sort of founder, the person that is a little bit flighty at times and may come to meetings with 20 ideas, of which 19 are pretty crap, but, they are a visionary. But what we've got to do, if it is in your business, we've got to figure this out and make sure we figure out who the visionary is, figure out who the integrator is, and then what the roles are. So it's really important we figure out the seats first, roles second, and only then do we put the people into those seats. We've got to do it that way, as opposed to doing it the normal way, which is where we do, here's Joe and this is Bob, and we put them into sort of an organization chart. This is accountability first. So for instance, if we look at, say, the marketing seat, and we've got, these are the things that we need doing, and we've figured out now that we've got Bob is the guy that sits in that seat. We want to check, and it goes back to that accountability chart I said, gets it, wants it, and capacity to do it. So does Bob get it? Does he understand the seats, the roles that are needed? Does he want it? Does he get up each morning really excited about doing his job? And does he have the capacity, as in the brain power, the knowledge, the drive, all of that sort of stuff, along with resource and time? Does he have the capacity to do the job? So this is what we're looking for in each and every person in an organization. Do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity? Do they meet our values? And that is what helps us to create an organization with the right people in the right seats. And that's what we've got to do, is flow it all the way down to each and every person in that organization, not just at senior leadership, but down to each one, figuring out the function and the roles, and then the name in that order. Now, typically, two sort of issues may come out of this. We may have something where we get a right person, Sandra, been there since you started, lovely, lovely person, does really well, but your business now is over $1 million and she can't do the finances as she used to do. She was very good when it was a small, but not big. So can we move her into another seat? Maybe that's what we want to do, because she meets our culture and our values. She's just struggling with what you need to do in the business. The other key thing is, if you get somebody in the organization that doesn't meet your values, somebody that is, quite frankly, a pain to work with, but is very good at what they do. So that is the wrong person in the right seat. You definitely need somebody doing that, and this person's damn good at it, but they just they create this culture of like, oh, it's just not nice, and you don't like working with them, right? The problem is that if we don't solve these two things, then you're going to grow your organization with some weak performers, as in the sort of right person, wrong seat. And if you're going to grow it with wrong person, you're going to create a new culture, which is not your culture, but it's down to this person. What do you want? I think a lot of people settle with both of those and they create a business around both of those in some regards. And that's why you struggle to grow. So we've got to make sure we're getting this right. I mean, we've got to take some hard decisions at times. So if we can put pinpoint on where the people issues are, then we can do something about it. Next up, excuse me, being interrupted by my dog who just jumped up on there. Next up is data. Data is a sort of key component that we need to get right. We've got to make sure that we're getting the right information for you, not just looking back. We've got to be getting the right information to help to make decisions to drive forward. So scorecard is what we create. A scorecard which has measurables. That's how we measure it. So this is just an example. You would create whatever's needed in your business. We'd figure out what the goal is for each area. And then we'd make sure we got accountability again of who owns each one. And then each week, we're tracking that data because what we're looking for is changes throughout the weekly performance. We don't want to wait a month or a quarter and then look back. We want some leading indicators so we can make some decisions very quickly in our business. It takes a while to get this right, but once you've got it right, it's so crucial. We get those measurables and we get those measurables all the way through the organization, even more so since we're so many working from home, because we need people accountable for what we can measure. Again, we're trying to get you to that 100% strong area if we can. 80% is really good. Now, we've done the top three. What this tends to do is create issues in the organization, or smoke out issues more than anything. And so we have ways of dealing with that. One is capturing those issues on a very regular basis, almost daily / weekly, and then IDSing. So what does that mean? If we can have a list as simple as a spreadsheet or whatever, we're capturing issues throughout the week. So rather than stopping and trying to discuss and solve things, 2, 3, 4 times a day, sometimes they're not the biggest issues in the business, and that just disrupts people. And so we've got to make sure we're working on the right issues. We pull them all together, and then when we get together, we vote on them. And so we're saying Andy S, right seat, website rock off track second, new business third. So that's the order of priority of the biggest issues in our business right now. So what do? We identify the root cause of Andy S right seat. That's all we're going to talk about right now. We're going to discuss it, and then we're going to solve it. It's so important that we identify root cause, no politicking, no repeating, getting into the discussion and just discussing that, not going off onto new business products off track or anything like that. We've got to be talking about this. You see, what normally happens in a business, we come together and we start talking about this issue, and then it leads on to this one. And before long, we're talking about the Christmas party and who's buying the milk tomorrow. That's not the best use of time. You've got to be discussing the most important issues and solving it. That's what we do. So once we've solved it, we then moves on to the next track, which is sort of 7-day action plan. But that is all about solving issues in your business smartly and quickly. Next up is process. Now, many people get a bit concerned about this. Can we process our business? Or if we create a document, it's going to be too long. We go for the 20-80 approach, if that makes sense. Pareto law is where it comes from. So we're going to document around 20%, and that should get you 80% of the results that you actually need in your organization. It's really important we do get it documented. At a simple level, we've got to figure out all of the things that happen in your business, HR, marketing, sales, and so on. What happens in each of these areas within your business that we can document at a very simple way that allows others to follow it. It's about the key people, all the people in your organization, but also new people that join. So much easier if they can just join and then follow a very simple process to keep things on brand as to how we do it here in your organization. So again, it's documented, it's followed by all, which is really, really important. We're trying to get you to 100% strong if we can. 80% is good. The process bit takes a bit longer. We don't want to jump into process until we've figured out all the other bits first, and then we get the process underway. And then finally, it's about traction. So what do we talk about here? Rocks. Rocks is the 90-day world, which I mentioned earlier on, and a meeting pulse. One of the things which we really, really teach you to do is hold world-class meetings, because in most organizations, you don't have them. So what are we looking to do? Well, we advise, strongly advise, and this is, by the way, when people say, I'm doing bits of EOS, I normally check to see if they're using this. Many don't use this, which actually is quite a golden nugget within it. It's the same time every week that we have same people in the meeting. This is a leadership meeting that we start with, and level 10 being we want it a 10 out of 10 meeting. We start with some good news just to get you in the right frame of mind. We don't want to be talking about the weather and the travel. It just brings everything down. So get in there. What's some good news personally and professionally? And then we go on to the scorecard that we've created, and we just simply want to go through each line item and just check if it's on track or off track, on track, off track. No discussion. We don't want reporting. Same with the rock reviews. Are the rocks that we've set for the 90 days, are they on track or off track? On track, off track. No discussion. If there is an issue, by the way, we just smoke it out and we drop it down into the issues list, which we'll come on to in a minute. Customer employee headlines. Anything we need to be sharing about anything, just while we're all together. Again, we're really looking for just to let the team know there, but also to smoke out issues, which we discuss later. We check last week's to-do list. We're looking for 90% done. Have we done that? Are there any issues from that? And again, if there are issues, we're adding it to the issues list. So all of the above is about smoking out issues. Very quick. You can see it's 5 minutes on each of those, just to download and check, not reporting. And then we go into the IDSing, the issues list, and IDSing, which is, again, identify, discuss, and solve. And that's where we spend 60 minutes of our time normally. This is on a typical size organization. If it's a smaller team, we may spend 60 minutes in total. This is a 90 minutes for most teams. And at the end of that, we conclude. We sort of say, okay, what do we need to share with the rest of the team? Is there any cascading messages? And we also then score the meeting. We said it's a level 10. How do we know? We score it. So each and every one of you will score it, and that helps us to improve it for next time. We've got to learn from what's working. We've got to learn from what's not working and make sure that we're getting those scores higher each week. And at the end of that, we finish. Always finish on time, start on time, finish on time, and then we can get onto our daily other tasks, if you like. So that is traction. Rocks and meeting pulse, very important. Again, if we use them with rigor, you'll find such a difference in your business. So that's the 6 key components. That's a couple of tools. There's 20 tools in total in the EOS toolkit. I've touched on a couple of those on each of those areas, but it's really important that you use all of them and not just a few. That's, I think, where if you use it with throughout, you get a lot more traction throughout the business. So finally, onto the process. What process do we go through? Well, I guess in some regards, there's sort of 3 routes at this point that you can take. One is keep doing what you've always done and get what you always get in some regards, or just this is not right for you, and that's absolutely fine. That is a route that you can explore. The second route is that you can read the book. The book is out there, Traction. You can follow the book. There is the website, the EOS website. So there's so much information out there, free of charge, for you just to do this stuff yourself. And that's absolutely fine. But as in anything in life, we can all just Google and find any of this information, how to do search engine optimization, how to write our wills, how to invest, how to do PR. We can find it all, books, Google it, anything. So the third option is where an implementer like me comes in and helps you. And this is where I bring a level of accountability throughout the process. Sometimes we need that. That's why we have people help you in the gyms and stuff like that. If you work with somebody like me, then this is the process we would typically go through. We would hold a 90-minute meeting, which covers a lot of the things we've just covered, being fair about it, but it also gives me the chance to dig into your business and just figure out a bit more about what's going on in the organization. From there, we then go into the first day together. This is a full day, 7 hours plus or minus an hour, generally off-site. And we cover the key things there of hitting the ceiling, figuring out what's going on. Accountability chart, we create the first cut of your accountability chart. We figure the rocks for your organization for the next sort of period, help to teach you the meeting pulse to run it sweet and smooth, and then get the first cut of your scorecard. So that's all done in the first day. It does take a day, every single one. I've worked on it. We go deep into it, and it's a lot of work. 30 days later, if that all goes well, then we come back and we do vision building day 1. 30 days after that, we do vision building day 2. And we're working on that, if you remember, right at the top of the vision, the 8 questions. That's what this is all about, covering all of those key things here that we need to get clarified. We tend to do this after we've done this because you've already got traction going in your business about some of this stuff. We want to get you a little bit more efficient. So this is why we do all this first, get you more efficiency, more accountability in your business from day 1. And then we sharpen up on all these key things for you. But there is distance between these because what we find is it's not about us coming in and just teaching you stuff, which we do. That's we're teaching the EOS, but facilitating the wisdom in the room, and then coaching is the final part that we also do. Because then it then goes into quarterlies. You're running your weekly sessions. I would then typically come in and run a quarterly with you, and then a 2-day annual planning at the back end to prepare for the following year. So that's what that's the way the process works. Now, it's not contracted. We have this wonderful thing where you pay for the day rates and only pay for it if you get value from the day. If you don't get value, you don't pay. Simple as that. And there's no contract going forward. We just have a loose agreement that you're on a 2-year journey. That's the way it tends to work. It's roughly 2 years that we work together to get you from where you are to 80% strong. Now, some teams get it earlier. Some teams may somewhere along here say, we've got it. We want to graduate. And that's what they do. Others keep going. And just like the fact that I'm bringing some accountability and some coaching and some more skills, because I'm seeing this in other organizations and I've seen it run in my business for 6 years. It took me from under my desk to selling my business. So I can bring that wisdom into those sessions that we hold. So that, my friends, quite simply is the EOS model and the process that we tend to go through when helping and working with people. There we go.
Amazing. Thank you, Adrian. That's brilliant. I'm sure everyone will agree. I'm just going to buy everyone a couple of minutes. Andrew's put a question in the Q&A. So thanks for that, Andrew. We'll come to that in a second. For everyone else to spend a couple of minutes just reflecting and think about what questions you'd like to present to Adrian, either pop them in the Q&A or if you'd prefer just for us to allow you to speak up, to verbalize it. If that's easier, just raise your hand and I'll unmute you instead. So couple of things for me, just whilst everyone's composing that, Adrian. What did you get my order right? So in terms of the rocks, the way that I've heard this described before is is it Stephen Covey, I think, initially coined it as like the sand and the stones and the rocks. So if you put the
Correct.
sand and the stone first, you've not got enough in the jar first, you've not got enough space for your rocks. So there's all this noise going on in your business. You must get the rocks prioritized first. And if you get the rocks in, you've still got space to put the sand and stones. But if you put the sand and stones in first, there's no space for the rocks. So exactly. What's the definition of a rock and how many are there? How do you work out which things should be your rocks, how many, and what the definition is?
Yeah, good question. And yeah, good explanation. What we do as a session is come together with all the senior leadership team, and then we just get all issues, all the opportunities, everything listed onto a board as to things that we think we would like to get done in the sort of next 90 days, because that's what we're working at, that sort of quarter. And normally when we're with a team, you know, might get 20, 30, 40 things up on a board of things we would love to do and things that we need to be doing. And then we start going through a process of keep, kill, combine. So we either go keep it because it's really important, kill it because it's just not the most important, or we might combine it with a couple of them. And how we filter that is that it is the most important thing we do in our business in the next 90 days that's going to move us forward. So it will vary for different businesses, but it might be we've got to get that software in, we've got to launch this, we've got to build that, we've got to create that, we've got to explore this, you know, whatever it is. Normally those rocks will link into that 1 year, they will link into that 3 year and that 10 year. So almost if we can go from that long range, if we call it the 10 year, and we pull it back and say, to get up that mountain, we've got to do these things down here in the next 90 days. And if we know what we've got to do in the next 90 days, then each week we're going to check that we're doing something to help us to get towards it. So it's literally that. It's the biggest things to move us forward. It's not business as usual. It's not normal, low level, smaller things. You know, this is just chunky things that we don't normally get onto, but we know we should. And that's why we create it into a business rock. The numbers of them, as you asked, normally between 3 to 7 in an organization of business rocks are the things that we attach. And then we make sure that somebody is accountable to own it, not necessarily do all of it, but own it. And then what normally happens is there might be a few other rocks which somebody says, well, actually, I don't have a company rock as an ownership. I could take on this as a personal rock, and then they take on those personal rocks. So we've got 2 levels, really. We've got the company rocks, personal rocks, before we get into business as usual.
Yeah, that's great. I think that leads nicely on to Andrew's first question, actually, because he was saying, you know, what happens if inevitably, what percentage did he say? Is it 82% of people issues? 82%?
Yeah, I mean, so many people issues in businesses.
Yeah. So if there's people issues, and you're a small company, you know, typically you might involve everybody in your regular management meeting, level 10 meeting, whatever you call it. So Andrew's asking the question is, if you're a leadership team of 1, how are you discussing those issues? But because you're trying to make it just the leadership because there's some sensitive areas, and also because of what you just said before is the rocks are the things that we know we should be discussed, but we never get round to it. You need it to be leadership for that reason, don't you? So that you can focus on the more strategic matters. But how do you do that if you're a leadership team of 1?
It's just about bringing a structure. So, I mean, for me, I have my VTO. So I've got where I want to take my business. I've figured out what my sort of values are and my goals are. And then it all comes down into that quarterly sort of period, that 90-day of what the rocks are that I've got to do in order to achieve my goal. So it might be attend network meetings. It might be to go on webinars. It might be to give out books. It's whatever works for me are my rocks, as opposed to just getting on with business as usual over here and responding to email and responding to other things that just take you in a direction which might not be where I want to take it. So it's just smartening what you as a person does, hence why you can run it as singular, or bringing a team together, and it might be the whole organization. If you are 4, 5, 6 strong, you bring it all together and you create the VTO together. So then you're all combined and going the same way with the same values and vision and so on, and the same figuring out those rocks. Or you have it where you've got a senior leadership team and then the rest of the team. So it can work, as I say, from 1 to multiple, but it's the same principle. You've got to follow the same process because it's a system. And if we follow the system that works, we get the good results from it.
Interesting. There are other ways of creating accountability as well, Andrew. Like, I dare say, you know, if you've got a spouse who will listen to you for 90 minutes a week, or another business owner that you've got rapport with, and you can maybe hold each other accountable by spending a couple of hours together a week.
Absolutely.
Neil asked, is there a precursor to traction for a small business CEO but no leadership team, which I guess is similar to Andrew's thing?
Yeah, there's no precursor. I mean, it is traction. is the thing. As I say, you can run it on one person, you can run it on two people. I've got a client out that pays me to go in and manage and bring them accountability all the way through. It is exactly the same. It's just about using the tools to help you. Now, clearly, some of those tools you may not need. You won't if you've not got people issues, but you still need a scorecard. You will have issues throughout, so you've got to have a way of solving them. You may want to have some process so you can make life easier for you. So, a vision, you've got to have that clear vision where you want to be taking it, because you've just got more chance of getting it.
Yeah. Just trying to think whether there's anything we've not answered of Andrew's second question, which follows on from that. Sounds like EOS is really designed for businesses with a leadership team. Being a single director in the business, presumably there are still ways to integrate EOS. Are there key things to focus on as a leadership team of one, or would you still try and follow the system as described? So basically, yeah, do the rocks and issues and talking points tend to change if you're a leadership team of one rather than a multiple leadership team?
Well, your discussions are slightly different when you're having a level 10 session, let's be honest about it, if it is just you. But don't overthink it, guys. I mean, this is just a bunch of tools that are there to help you to run your business better. It's some basic stuff. Do you have a vision where you want to be going? How am I solving some issues? What are my scorecards to know whether I'm on track or off track? All of these things are sort of very standard stuff, really, which EOS just brings it together in a system. So, it's as I said earlier on, the sweet spot is between 10 and 250, but it works from one, because I run it on myself and other people. I've got clients and two, and I also know organizations with thousands of people in them. But the sweet spot is let's not get confused by the sweet spot. It can run across the whole range.
I love that, Adrian, because obviously you're an EOS implementer and you're told to keep this pure. But at the end of the day, this is just some tools. It's your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as it's helping you make the boat row faster, as they say. As long as it's helping you get more focused, it's don't sweat over the exact precise details of was that a rock or was it not? As long as it's making you more focused, more productive, and moving your business forward towards its vision, then it's done its job, hasn't it?
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. At the end of the day, you want to achieve something, and that's what we're trying to do, just achieve it. It's like I say, that's the mountain I want to go up. How am I going to get there? It's like going up Mount Everest. You need to find the right Sherpas and guys to get you up there. But you're backtracking. You've got to get from here to the airport to fly to the country. You know what I mean? So there's lots of levels. But if you plan it and prepare it, and the mountain and the date you want to be there and all that sort of stuff, you've got much more chance of achieving it than if you don't, right? And that's all we're doing. We're using a load of tools, a vision, helping you more traction, measuring whether you're doing it or not, all that good stuff. So as I've said several times, it's not rocket science, but sometimes in organizations, we are just not doing the basics. I mean, this, Paul, some don't have a cash flow document. It's like, come on, we've got to get some basics in place here to make sure that we're doing the right things to help us to get to where we want it. There's no point saying we're going to do that if we're not doing all the basics, right? And EOS is a lot of that. But by having an implementer for the right teams, I'm not saying I'm right for all the teams. I'm not, or for any of them, any implementers. It's about if they need somebody to hold them to account. So why do some people need a trainer at the gym? Not everybody does. Some can go in there and just do the stuff. And some do it really well, some do it crap, right?
Yeah, I definitely need the trainer. I'm terrible with that one. Adrian, I'm just going to put you on the spot a little bit, and we've not planned this, but everybody has stayed on till the end. So I'd love you to share a little bit more about what happened with Blue Leaf in your story. You've sort of mentioned a couple of times and referenced Under My Desk during this webinar, and I wasn't sure whether you're talking about you or the book. But I know from the podcast the full story. But importantly, I think I'm interested in the thing that always stands out for me when I've listened to your story in the past is that, like many people, you had read the book and then allowed it to go dusty on your bookshelf and then sort of dusted it off again when you really needed it and you wished you had followed it from the start. So can you just talk us through a little bit of that story?
Yeah, it might be slightly wrong there, actually, Paul. I'll just pick you up on a couple bits to make sure it's accurate. But no, well, what happened was, so yeah, started the business in 99, and that was just me in my bedroom and, designing, branding, doing British Cycling logo, for instance, which is still there now. I'm so proud to see that. But, just helping companies. And then I just sort of grew. My wife at the time joined me and she helped to drive it. And then we recruited people and then we got more serious and we got an office and, all that stuff. It just sort of evolved and you go in networks and business BNIs and you get referrals and meet people and the business just morphed into what it was. I never really planned it from that when I started in my bed on my bedside table. And so I guess from 1999 to 2013, we had lots of roller coastering, and it's I mentioned earlier, hitting the ceiling. You're going along and then you just hit the ceiling and you can't break out for some reason. Some struggle to bust 1 million. That's the sort of a typical head ceiling. Another is getting past 12 people is also another sort of ceiling people come across. And some businesses just fail. Anyway, we broke through some of those, but it just came to 2013 was just a weird year for a number of reasons. And as I mentioned earlier, mum passing divorce and practically was insolvent. Our accountants did say, right, we're bringing in insolvency practitioners. It was not Paul, by the way. I didn't know Paul, just for clarity at the time. But they advised, no, we're bringing in insolvency practitioners. And I was like, I don't want to close. That's not my story. So somebody gave me the book, the traction book, and I literally was living in my office. I mean, no word of a lie, I'd moved out of home and I was living under my desk for 3 months, which is a bit tricky when developers were coming in early. And on one occasion, I was under my desk, and the developer came in and didn't really notice he was a back end developer, so that was it was fine. But no, read the book. And then it didn't go dusty. No, we took action with it. Actually, we structured the business based upon the principles of traction, and followed it to its letter. One of the key things that made a difference was that I realised that I was getting in the way of the business a lot because, as I touched on earlier on, about two roles: the visionary and the integrator. And I realised that I guess a co-director of mine, he really was a smart, detailed integrator guy. And I was not. I was really getting in the way of things and creating it just a bit messy. So I put myself into this visionary, which is not necessarily top of the tree, but it is the visionary, which is outward looking. And that I was then blocked from making a mess with the rest of the organization. And that worked. Excuse me. So that new structure and having a new scorecard and a new vision and all that sort of stuff, it just created a clarity for us that we managed to trade out of. And we traded out. We didn't close. We didn't Phoenix. We didn't do anything. We did get a business loan, actually, which was a lofty, personally attached business loan. And but that change and the rigor of it helped us grow out of it. And for clarity, I did self-implemented it. Me and Rob, we did it ourselves. We didn't bring in an integrated, an implementer. We couldn't afford it. We were broke. So we did it ourselves and we followed it and we got out there. Now, I guess some will say, well, why should we bring in an implementer? Well, I think we might have done it quicker if we'd have had an implementer coming in and helping us and teaching us and facilitating and coaching than what we did it. But, at the time that worked for us. We then got to that point in 2018, when people were interested in this because we had created that niche. We created that, we were very much Salesforce Commerce Cloud was our sweet spot. And that's exactly what we went for. And that's what we did. And that's when companies were interested in buying us. We had 6 companies knocking on our door saying they were interested in us. Now, we didn't go to market. Our EBIT wasn't great, and we managed to get a multiplier of revenue deal, which just suited us really, really well. So, but I can categorically link it all to the fact that I read the book, put the process in place, followed it purely, and we got there to a sale.
Brilliant. That's great. Great story. Obviously, the right way, I think, to start up a business when it's, you're practicing effectively what you preach. So the passion and the credibility just comes out of you, Adrian. One, because of your story and how you've used it, and two, because for many of the people that are here today, they're running agencies themselves as well. And like you said, there's loads of tools out there. There's the book, there's all the resources, there's this webinar, there's Adrian's podcast. There's loads that you can use to have a go at this yourself. And by all means do that and hopefully you're successful. If you feel like you need the accountability and you need some expert support, then obviously get in touch with Adrian.
Well, reach out anyway. Absolutely. I'll point you in the right direction. I'll give you my time, and if you want a book, let me know. I'll send you a book free of charge, because that's what happened to me. So, I'm just there to help and support. And if you need me in the business, to help you, it's guaranteed. And there's no contract, so it's a very low bar to entry, if that makes sense.
And for those that are just keen to just understand the next steps, what are they? What does that look like?
Well, reach out to me and I'll speak one-to-one with people. And, if they want a free of charge 90-minute, which, as I said, is similar to this, but I tend to do that with the leadership team that I work with. So I'll typically run that with the whole leadership team and make sure they're all involved with what it's about. And then if they like that, then we then go to paid sessions. And that's when it starts to, I get involved personally to, teach, facilitate and coach the EOS system.
Excellent. Thanks, Adrian. Well, I'll share the slides and the recording later today in the WhatsApp group, as well as Adrian's contact details. Everyone will have everything you need to just reach out to Adrian directly.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for hosting. But yeah, reach out, guys. Anybody reach out, that's absolutely fine.
Brilliant. Thanks, Adrian.
All right. Thanks very much.
See you later.
Cheers.
Bye.
Take care.